the extra historians. We finally meet. You know, I am a historian as well. I have read books. I am an academic. I have studied the sciences of parapsychology, astrology, and Ariosophy. So, colleagues, I must ask you, why would you disrupt my legitimate archaeological work? Are you afraid we will prove the truth we already know in Nazi high command? That millions of years ago, ice moons crashed into the Earth, seeding it with divine alien sperma that became the human race, and in the great Hyperborean age, Aryans were supermen like Siegfried who settled the world, creating writing and agriculture, founding Greece, Rome, and Buddhism. You know, Buddha was an Aryan, yes? And that their reign was only ended when their homeland of Thule was wiped out by another ice moon, creating the myth of Atlantis! Admit it. You're afraid I'm right, aren't you? Aren't you? Stop laughing. Stop it! We really believe this, Scheisse!
Thanks so much to Wraithmarked Creative for supporting today's historical tale. And after the episode, please go check out their Kickstarter for Travis Baldry's deluxe edition of the fantastic novel, Bookshops and Bone Dust. Chances are you've probably heard at one time or another that Nazis were obsessed with the occult. Actually, thanks to Indiana Jones, Captain America, and Hellboy, the idea that Nazis pursued mystical artifacts might actually be the first thing you learned about them as a child. And later, you also probably chuckled away that idea as nonsense, right? Maybe not invented by movies, but definitely played up for effect. Maybe Himmler and other weirdos toyed around with dowsing or artifact collecting, but it's really a footnote in our understanding of the Nazi state. Academic historians often did the same, partially because those working on these issues frequently approached the topic from a conspiratorial angle, inflamed by sensationalist TV documentaries, but also because it was just hard to get sources. Many German academics who participated in Nazi-sponsored archaeological digs were still active in the post-war period, and none too interested in discussing who'd funded their research back in the 1930s. However, in the last couple of decades, historians are beginning to revisit Nazi interest in the supernatural and pseudoscience, tracking how it underpinned the ideology of the movement itself and was used to bolster Germany's territorial claims. Some recent book, like Erick Kurlander's Hitler's Monsters, very helpful for this series, actually argue that much of the Nazi ideology can be seen in a framework of supernatural belief. And the picture that emerges is less one of the SS doing weird rituals in castles, and more about how Nazi ideology is awash in supernatural ideas, pseudoscience, and conspiracy theories. Which is actually why we wanted to do this series. Because, well, we're also currently in the midst of a world awash in disinformation and fringe beliefs that are used to justify political policy. And while it is fun to clown on the absurdities that Nazi leadership figures believed, we also shouldn't lose sight about how these beliefs help cause incredible harm to millions. Just because an idea is ridiculous doesn't mean it's not dangerous. But that story actually begins long before the establishment of the Third Reich, when Germany was forming as a country. The later 19th century was a rough time for establishment religion. Attendance at mainline churches and synagogues declined in the face of capitalism, social change, and advancing technology. Yet, despite this disillusionment with organized religion, the yearning for spiritual fulfillment and social connection continued. Across Europe and North America, people began gravitating towards esoteric new religions like spiritualism, forms of paganism, theosophy, or Eastern traditions like Buddhism, joining movements that promised a spiritual truth outside traditional channels. Technology both drove and underpinned this questing, as inventions such as the telephone, the airplane, and vaccines hinted at a future where people achieved the previously impossible. Simultaneously, geologists and archaeologists made discoveries about the deep past that not only proved the Earth was vastly older than believed, but uncovered civilizations previously only mentioned in ancient stories. The whole concept of prehistory was founded with the understanding that primordial humans had lived in caves, hunted, and competed with other forms of ancient man, like Neanderthals. So, in this environment, it's understandable that across the world, it appeared possible that an incredible ancient discovery, such as Atlantis, might occur, or that technology would one day prove a fringe belief like clairvoyance to be measurable and true. Simultaneously, early genetics research and misapplication of Darwin's theories spawned a highly destructive eugenics movement in several nations, including the United States. And these forces were also acting on Germany, though taking on a slightly different character because the country had only recently unified and was in the process of forming its national identity during this era. While seeking to create a culture that was quintessentially German, writers, artists, and intellectuals turned to folktales such as that of the mythic hero Siegfried, legends of Charlemagne, or tales of monstrous creatures. The poems of Goethe, full of fairies, vampires, and the devil, were adopted as part of the national canon, and Wagner's Ring Cycle reignited interest in old stories of dwarves and dragons. In these tales, the German protagonists were mythic supermen and pure-hearted women who defeated demons and monsters, as well as scheming medieval caricatures of Jewish people. After all, repression of Jewish communities was nothing new in the lands now called Germany. Some retellings even cast supernatural creatures like werewolves and witches as heroic figures, defending German soil, which later led multiple Nazi units to adopt the nickname werewolves. This attempted cultural fusion of Christianity with pagan traditions was a massive success, but also baked the supernatural and anti-Semitism into German culture. Meanwhile, German school curriculums attempted to instill a sense of epic history into students, telling the great tales of the German race in ages past. At the same time, a popular movement known as Völkisch nationalism started to spread, which imagined a kind of ideal German as a racially pure peasant who had spiritual connections to the land. Esoteric writers began to speculate that blood had magic qualities, and that pure-blooded Aryans would have spiritual and psychic powers should they not dilute their blood by marrying outside their ethnicity. Paradoxically, these movements were also fascinated with Eastern mysticism and plundered Buddhism and Hinduism for ideas, while claiming mutual descent. Soon, Völkisch secret societies, based on the Freemasons, were springing up around Germany, including one breakaway founded in the wake of World War I, the Thule Society, which played a small role in what would become Nazism. Named after Thule, a far northern island mentioned in an ancient Greek account, the Thulers were an odd bunch. Membership required genealogical proof that applicants had no Jewish ancestors, which gained them admittance to what was essentially a discussion group on racial nationalism and right-wing politics. And its founder, the occultist, astrologer, and one-time Muslim convert, Rudolf von Zebotendorf, borrowed a symbol from Eastern religion for his new group, the swastika. One popular idea within the society was that of world ice theory, a pseudoscientific theory that the universe had been created by massive collisions between cosmic bodies of fire and ice, and bombardments by ice moons had shaped Earth's history. According to this belief, ancient humans had not only arrived on Earth via one of these comets, but these ancient Aryans had spread out in a mythic golden age of civilization before Thule was again destroyed by an ice moon, handily explaining why the supposed Germanic master race were living in caves and mud huts while the Mesopotamians developed writing and the Romans built an empire. Soon, they claimed archaeologists would look closer at major archaeological sites around the world and find traces of ancient Aryans in places as far as Egypt, Babylon, and the Incan ruins of Tiahuanaca. These ideas dovetailed well with ideas already expressed by the German-Russian theosophist Madame Blavatsky, who'd proposed a similar idea to explain why Germans were, in fact, the descendants of Atlantis. A further offshoot of theosophy, Aryosophy, which focused on mysticism involving Aryans and would influence Nazi radical thought, was patronized by Thule. But the Thule Society was not just a band of eclectic weirdos. They were also active on the German far right. In 1919, when left-wing socialists took over Munich and declared a republic, the Thule Society plotted to kidnap the leader of the new republic and sent agents to infiltrate the military. The socialists got wise and raided Thule offices, executing several Thulers and prompting the group to help whip up the right-wing militias that retook the city. Yet the Thule Society was not viable as a political party, especially after its antics in Munich had made it open to public scrutiny. It was too elitist, too aristocratic, so it branched out, with several ex-members founding the German Workers' Party, or DAP, an extreme right political organization consisting of disaffected World War I veterans with ethnic nationalist beliefs, deep-rooted anti-Semitism, and a working-class background. Its founder was, of course, a semi-professional astrologer. Later, the Thule Society would purchase a newspaper for the party's use and bankroll its publication. Still, it was a small, obscure, badly run party, and it might have stayed that way. Except that in 1919, an enlisted soldier showed up at one of its meetings. The soldier was a decorated veteran, retained as a liaison with civilian organizations, who was occasionally sent to political meetings to see if they were secretly communist. His name was Adolf Hitler, a committed atheist, and he thought that this ridiculous German Workers' Party could be so much more. But pop quiz, hotshot, how would you go about transitioning from this episode into talking about a phenomenal Kickstarter project you're really excited about? Well, if you're like me, the only way you know how is with a Keanu Reeves movie reference and a plucky attitude, so let's talk some bookshops and bone dust. So in 2023, Wraithmark Creative ran a record-breaking Kickstarter campaign for a deluxe edition of Travis Baldrey's #1 New York Times best-selling cozy novel Legends and Lattes. And to close out 2024, they're kickstarting a deluxe edition of the prequel, Bookshops and Bone Dust. Now, if their Kickstarter treatment for Legends and Lattes, easily one of the prettiest books I've ever held, is anything to go off of, this next book is just in amazing hands. Though, actually, you can kind of see the cool gold lettering is keying out here on the green screen, so why don't we just cut to some stuff where I'm not actually in an animated coffee shop to show you this thing. Each deluxe edition from the Kickstarter comes signed by Travis and features gorgeous original dust cover art by Justin Gerard. There's also custom sketchwork on the hardcover case that blew my flippin' socks off in L&L, gold page gilding, and a Kickstarter exclusive interior layout including full color sheets and wood carving style scene and character illustrations, again by Justin Gerard. His work is just aces. You have to see it. And if you missed Legends and Lattes the first go around, you can pick up book 1 on this Kickstarter and even save some money on shipping when you do. Meaning, lattes for days. Of course, there's just tons more to be excited about with this edition, so you should definitely check out the campaign and all of its stretch goals and perks in the link below. You can snag your deluxe edition of Bookshops and Bone Dust right here, and then once you've stocked your bookshelf, check out our next video here. Oh my god, I'm so glad I caught you. Did you know that Angelo Valenciana, Arclight Games, Dominic Valenciana, Foxdoc, Hunter Z, Joseph Blame, Kuyakoi, and Ziliad Architectures were the best legendary patrons? Well, now you do.